It's gone.
Send an email or something.
Come on in.
You can sign in and back. There's materials for you, agendas.
I'm going to call to order the special board meeting for the PTBA for September 21st, 2014. And note for the record that all of our council board members are present. So would you please stand and join me in the pledge. Back to I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a couple of announcements. Since we're meeting at 4 o'clock today, unusual time, our building closes and is secured roughly at this time. And so what we've done is our front doors have automatic security locks on them, and they will enable you to go in and out until 5 o'clock. If we run past 5 o'clock and you go out the front door, you're not going to get back in. So if
after 5.
After 5.
But we can get out.
You can get out. Out is easy. These two doors will also be secured the main door into the rest of the building. We have restrooms, 2 restrooms out in the lobby, so I think we're all okay. Just so you remember, you don't want to see anybody out there hammering on the window. So, also, since this is a special meeting, our agenda is a little bit different than it normally is, in that we're not going to have an audience comment period. We're going to have a limited agenda to business item number 1, which is discussion on management transition. And I am not calling for an executive session for this meeting. And I'll note that in 2 weeks we will have another interim board meeting. And a week after that, a regular board meeting. And those dates are listed at the bottom of our agenda. Friday, October 10th is another special meeting, and normal meeting time for the board will be Friday, October 17th. Both of these at 9:30 a.m. in this building. So, hearing that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I so move to approve the agenda as presented.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as submitted. Any discussion?
Yes. So you mentioned that we're not having an executive session. If the board wished to have an executive session, we could, correct?
You'd have to, at this point in time, you'd have to either amend this motion or, because the motion is without an executive session.
Yeah, well, I would go ahead and move to amend, keeping the executive session on the agenda. I think that there are things that need to be discussed, and I think you'll want to do that in executive session, or we could do that in public, but something tells me you as chair, you'll want to have an executive session. You may wish to confer with legal counsel.
There has to be a reason for an
It has to be
executive
a stated exemption.
In employee performance.
What employee?
Your financial manager.
Is there a second to the amendment to the original motion?
Well, I'll second it. I don't know what he's talking about, so.
So do you want to vote on whether or not to have an executive session?
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded to amend the original motion to include an executive session with this business meeting. Any discussion on that item?
It's for the purpose of reviewing the performance of a public employee, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, it's my intention that, my estimation that we do not need an executive session at this special board meeting, but we will certainly vote on it.
Well, since it's, we are restricted to the items that are listed on our agenda, and it is listed, so
That's right.
we do have that capability.
Okay, all those in favor of amending the original motion to include the executive session on the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There's 2 ayes. All those opposed?
I'm sorry.
Did you vote aye?
Vote is aye.
You voted aye?
You better restate the motion.
The motion is to include an executive session during this meeting as an amendment to the original motion, which did not include the executive session. So we do that again. All those in favor of that amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
2 ayes. Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
There's 3 nays. The motion failed. The amendment to the motion failed. The original motion now is to approve the agenda as presented with the exception of the executive session, obviously. All those in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
It is 4 yeas, 1 nay, and the motion is passed. All right, let's continue with business item number 1, which is management transition. And I think we sort of left it for Matt to give us a little bit of direction. I know there has been some research done. Some of you have done some research on this, and maybe we can get some reports as we go. But let's start with our legal counsel, Matt.
Well, looks like we have two issues in front of us in the short term here. One, the more immediate task of appointing someone to run the agency on an interim basis. And we have some names of some people. I think tonight we might want to talk about a procedure of vetting a couple of those and get into a decision on someone to run the agency on an interim basis. And in the bigger picture, discussing the process for long-term replacement of executive director. There's a couple models that we can talk about, having someone retained to do kind of a search. Part of the board discussion will be the scope of that search for a permanent replacement for the executive director. process with other clients or recent before, so I've got actually some templates for you to take a look at.
Okay.
Matt, do you have any recommendation as far as some of these people that have been spoken to already, look individuals that probably have some capability to serve as an interim director? Would you envision us having a somebody full-time or someone part-time?
Not necessarily. I think you probably could have someone on a part-time basis. You've got two things you want. One, just someone to maintain the day-to-day, but also I think you want to have someone with some experience behind you to help guide you to the next step. And that's not necessarily a full-time person. And again, I have a template of someone who's done it with another agency that
That's gone through a that has.
I think it was a part-time consultant agreement for the short term, and then it went to the search, and they're in the process of hiring a full-time. So.
But was that agency in the, I mean, what I feel is unique about our situation is that we have just taken major cuts in service. We have changes. One of the things, I'm speaking to the vulnerability of Island Transit, and my encouragement that we think about maybe having some flexibility before we make that decision about whether it's full-time or part-time based on the candidates that we might be considering and the skill set that they might bring and how long they're even available. I mean, I think there are a lot of moving parts right now that I would urge us not to get hard and fast about that. And so I think we should set out a process, but I think we need to, and we need to move swiftly.
So you think it depends on the individual what you do?
Well, I'm not sure how big a pool of candidates are available that are well qualified for immediate full-time use. It could be that there is one, but it might be that a contract person that we find that we really like, who we think has skills that would be most beneficial, might only be available on a part-time basis. So that I think for my personal decision making, I would rather have some latitude while we.
Well, I think that's part of the process. I think.
Yeah.
So that's my first.
I guess I threw that out as a either or thing. Make sure we talk about those sorts of scenarios.
With a interim consultant, one can sign up for a certain number of hours to get started and even see how far those hours stretch.
That's true.
Yeah, and that also tells us about availability, because some people might be interested in that who have other responsibilities, and some people may not be interested in that because it is only a certain number of hours to start.
So what?
So what kind of templates are we?
Well, I think the first thing would be to either, as a full board, schedule some time to vet some of the people we've talked to, or make a subcommittee of the board to do some interviews and then come back with a recommendation for. And again, I think we're not to the point of looking at the templates yet, because we don't know the scope of the consideration and the rate and those sorts of things, which I think need to be nailed down before we get into the agreements. Agreements will be pretty standard professional services sorts of agreements with hourly rates, pay, termination clauses, those sorts of things.
So you're recommending a sub-board to
Let's,
the application?
obviously, it's a board decision how to do it. Those are,
Yeah, that's your.
yeah. Just in the interest of time and scheduling 5 people to interview, I think might pose some difficulties.
Well, I guess it would make sense for us to be discussing what our expectations are, perhaps, of this position. So that even if we should decide to have a subcommittee, they'd have some direction from this board today. So my preference would be that they have some transit experience, and short of transit-specific experience, that they have municipal transportation experience. And I think we need to be thinking about this in the short term, the recovery, particular challenges that we're facing as far as our recovery and the reorganization of our system. That we need, it's my goal is that we get this revamp out to the public as quickly as possible so that we can get back to some semblance of stability and in these areas that have had service cut. So I know it's not going to look exactly like it did before, but I don't want to postpone that revamping of the routes until we get through the interim process. So that's where I think having someone with transit experience would be preferable.
Continue that process.
But certainly someone who knows how to navigate. There are a number of grant opportunities that we need to move forward with. We had a presentation at the RTPO today about the Human Services Transportation Grant opportunity that is next month. So if those are the kinds of things that we would need to have somebody who could really hit the ground running and take advantage of those to best position us moving forward. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I've written down 4 areas: municipal transportation experience, financial accounting experience, or not an accountant per se, but financial management, I guess I could call it. The reorganization of scheduled routes, although I think, like you said, the focus should be on the routes that were suspended. And grant writing skills. Those are the criteria, I think, are things we're looking for.
Scott, you have any comments?
Well, I guess the question would be, what homework have we as board members done since last Friday? Do we anticipate compensating this individual?
How?
No.
Well, I'm assuming we're going to have to pay something.
Okay, well, I guess the question is, if financially, can we, every time we turn around, we find out that financially, we are not as solvent as we thought we might be. In fact, as you take a look at, conversations that have taken place with those at our insurance pool.
Well, you're going to get us into an area.
No, I'm talking about financially. We're going to compensate somebody, and we're now hearing for the first time as a board that we as an organization have entered into an agreement not to pay our insurance premiums in January, but to defer them until October. I think that's news to you as a board. I think it's news to those in the public, and we are being given misinformation when it comes to our financial status. So
yeah,
if we're going to compensate, I want to know that we have the money.
So my understanding was that there were financial reports, and I received some from the meeting last week. Are you doubting that those are accurate? The financial reports that you received last week?
I'm doubting that you know that we have deferred our January 2015 payments.
I'm not talking about renegotiation of insurance payments. I'm asking if the cash flow projections that you received last week were agreeable to you. Are you doubting that they're not accurate?
If
Aside from an insurance payment agreement, I'm asking you about the cash flow.
Yeah,
What we're discussing right now is whether we have cash to pay an interim director, not our insurance agreement. So I'm not going to jump from one topic to the next,
Yes, I'm
Mayor.
going to question everything.
So-
Because the information that we
so-
got
so-
last week was incorrect.
Scott, point of order, you have a specific interest in whether or not the transit system has enough money to pay an interim director. I mean, that's what we're talking about today. You have another issue with another item that's a budget item that is in the planning stage right now, and I'm sure, other than pointing fingers at people, if you don't point fingers at people, you're going to find out there's some reasons behind all of this. And
There's a reason why we don't know? There's a reason why
Mr.
you as a
Mayor.
board don't know?
We do know. We do know. We've been informed about these.
Why isn't it in the minutes?
I think it was in.
No, it wasn't.
Well, what I'd like to question is you have had a representative at this table through all of these conversations. Now, whether or not you communicated with him on a regular basis, I don't know. But that would be, for me, the conduit for you to receive the information for the city of Oak Harbor from these meetings, would be from your designated representative. That was, and so I'm sorry if there's information that you don't have, or.
Nor did you in
Well, I
August.
haven't seen these, this is minutes of a meeting of the Washington State Transit Insurance Pool.
That's exactly right.
Before you derail the agenda item that's on, that we're discussing right now, sir, I would ask that what we do to stipulate, to meet your need, would be that we say we want to verify our ability and the compensation that would be offered for for an interim transit director. But I'm not willing to talk about something that wasn't on our agenda item, which we are restricted, as I said at the very beginning. Insurance payments are not an agenda item today. This is a special meeting. The Open Public Meetings Act requires that when we're at a special meeting, we only talk about those things that were advertised, nothing else. So I would support the point of order that was brought up.
And my question was, are we planning on compensating this individual? And if the answer is yes, I would question whether we have the dollars, as we are finding out 24 hours ago that we can't even make our insurance premium payments, and that there's information that the board and the public is not even aware of.
That's an inaccurate statement.
You're getting way off base here, Scott. I don't know what your agenda is, but the agenda we're going to stick to is what was printed. And if you are bound determined to derail us as a board and Island Transit, you have a problem, because I'm just not going to allow it to happen. And so we're going to continue on with our discussion. I asked you if you had some information that you wanted to contribute. You contributed one part of whether or not we could afford to pay interim transit director, and so we'll talk about that.
Good.
Yeah, and I think that verifying our cash flow, and we appointed at our last meeting a finance committee of board members who are reviewing bank statements and warrants on. So I would ask for their verification about our capacity for compensation of the interim director when we get to that point.
My intent is not to derail. In fact, I think that those that are observing this board and their lack of accountability, lack of responsibility, would assert that this board has derailed the agency itself, and is responsible for the financial situation that we find ourselves in today.
Thank you for your continued support, sir. After one whole week, you come up with that evaluation. That's amazing. Thank you.
Information that you didn't have.
Again, the city of Oak Harbor has had a representative at this seat through some very difficult discussions that we've had over the past year.
Okay, so let's, on a planning basis, I think we've identified maybe some criteria that we would like to look at going forward, evaluating somebody. And we've identified, obviously, a big need is to make sure that we have a capability to pay in whatever prevailing a wage we might encounter on a contractual basis. And I wouldn't have a clue. I would somewhere in the hourly rate as to what a Martha earned. I mean, if we're going to find somebody with some capabilities in those areas, that's probably what we're going to get it.
You're probably going to be in the range of 50 to 70 bucks an hour minimum.
That gives us,
Depending on their
Skills,
experience.
yeah. Well, and their agreement to that.
and this is, Matt, this is like a regular contractual employee, there's no benefits involved.
Well, again, there's lots of ways you can structure it. I would suggest probably just a professional service agreement, so yeah, it would not be an employment agreement. It would be a straight.
Okay.
Bob, do you have a list of people that are interested?
We have identified some people, yeah, and I think that's probably what we could start with as far as trying to get some interviews. And these people come from various sources.
Is the public now offered the opportunity? Is the public now offered the opportunity to speak?
No, we're not going to have public input.
Thank you.
I probably shouldn't have allowed that, but
Thank you.
I think Sarah Nell has been here for every meeting for the last 28 years, so I give her a little deference. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We mentioned the fact that we probably would need a committee. Interview, is that rather than having the whole board?
And that's a board decision, so.
What do we think about that?
Well, I do think, given scheduling, it makes a lot of sense to have a subcommittee that does the interview process.
Much on at least 3 of us, because Bill and I are already on the finance committee.
But with a 5-member board, it can only be a 2-person subcommittee, because
Now, you want a quorum?
you can't have,
Yeah.
otherwise you have a public
Well, I mean,
meeting.
there's 3 in the pool.
Right. Well, and I am not available next week, but I'll be available after that. But I'm assuming we're gonna wanna move pretty quickly. I appreciate what the tasks that have fallen on your shoulders, Bob, but I don't think you was you're looking for an extended stay in that position.
Well, I have to learn how to use the telephone system, which is, I think, so wonderful accomplishment. Fairly complicated, but, yeah.
And just the last.
Yeah, I think we need to get somebody in here and as soon as possible, and get the right person.
I mean, I do have some time next week.
I have some time.
I have some time. I mean, I'd be willing to serve if the board so chooses. I
Same
have
here.
to coordinate the schedule, but
My schedule is
really
fairly
flexible
flexible.
things around and
Yeah.
Well,
get a little time.
could I take the initiative to nominate Aubrey Vaughn and well, either
Yes.
Bob or Jim, I guess whichever.
Well, I think because Bob has the time, but I can do it if I may, yeah.
Well-
Probably Bob.
So did the board just choose to make a subcommittee?
Yes.
I
I'm
didn't
forming.
hear
I
that.
don't remember that vote.
I don't
There
remember
hasn't
the,
been, I'm forming a motion, sir.
Right.
Right, there hasn't been seconded, we haven't made a
Well,
decision.
that's-
There's no
Zero.
reason to jump the gun, we're okay.
No, you're not okay. That's why we're
Yeah.
here.
Actually, we're,
Well, we're not okay.
Mr. Chair, I would ask for a 5-minute break.
we can recess for 5
We
minutes.
can-
If
we'll
the-
recess
Do we
for
have a member that needs a recess?
5
for
minutes.
5 minutes?
Okay, we'll recess for 5 minutes. Remember, don't go out the front, oh, you can go out the front door.